Hi everybody, welcome to episode 43 of the Teesside Business Podcast. Today we're very lucky to be joined by Dominic from Animmersion.
Hi everybody.
Yeah, thanks very much for coming down. I think that anybody who's been involved in Teesside business for a while, especially in either startups or tech or that kind of space, have definitely heard of Animmersion. You're one of those companies before, obviously, we started a chat that I had known about for a while just by seeing you in the press and, you know, talks and Q&As and stuff that you've personally done.
Yeah.
So it's great to kind of like have you down from and start to talk about like that kind of side of the industry. So
pleasure to be here and something that I feel very passionate about myself as well. So happy to be involved.
So can you give us a very quick outline of how you came up just like to start Animmersion 13 years ago?
13 years ago, yeah. There's actually quite a tail end to this story as well, actually. So myself and a few others went to Teesside University and did visualization, as it was called back then. And we came out of university, and I'll be honest, it was a very, very niche talent that we had, or skill, should I say. And we decided then that we actually wanted to set up a business. There was 10 of us that lived in the same house in final year, all did the same thing. And we all wanted to set up a business, but we didn't know what we were going to do. Yep. We just knew we needed to set up a business doing something with computers. So we decided to actually go out into industry. I went to work on PlayStation games, and then went on to head up a multimedia department at a web company that I'd just taken some investment in. And my business partner Sam was working at the VR centre at Teesside University. And in 2006, 13 years ago, we got the opportunity that Teesside University set up the Victoria Road, the launch pad, and had the incubation space to start the companies, and some excellent business support. It wasn't funded. It wasn't funding that you received. It was funding that was apportioned to the support that you needed. So, legals, accounts, mentors, kind of things that cost a fortune that you don't really prepare yourself for starting up a business, but take up a huge amount of time and a huge amount of money. And so because of that opportunity at Teesside University in the startup space, it kind of crystallised for both Sam and myself at that point that we would start the business and we would focus it around the application of visual computer graphics, but into the industrial and engineering space. We felt like there was a fairly big gap in the market, and the approach that we've always had is people always talk about digital transformation, and I'll be honest, it annoys me a little bit, digital transformation, because I think we are all digitally transformed. I just don't think we've reached digital maturity.
No, I would happily, very much agree with that. I saw a podcast a while ago with Elon Musk, and he was saying pretty much the same thing. He was saying that technically now, without us even thinking about it, we are all a version of cyborgs with our phones and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
We now have you have access to the entirety of human knowledge at any point. You said that it's an interface problem, not a, and I think that's as we kind of go through that kind of process that'll start. I know he's doing Neuralink and that kind of stuff. But I really agree with you that it's a maturity thing.
And that's exactly it, is that I think people have always seen technology or the hardware as the change, and it's not. It's not. The hardware is just literally a monolithic box that does nothing. It's the content that you put on it that you interface with the person in the correct way, and that's what Animmersion was really born to do, was to take visual computer graphics, visualization, and apply that in different ways for industries to solve communication challenges, to really replace the need. What we felt strongly was that if you were able to read X amount of white papers and do everything, that you'd be able to understand it, but if you didn't speak the language or if you didn't have the background knowledge, it was a challenge. Whereas the innate human ability is to understand something you see. Language was invented to interpret what you see. And so the business was actually based around going back to the very, very basics of what human communication is that's what I want to see, and that's what I want to be able to communicate to others.
I saw a brilliant example of what you did. Was it yesterday or the other day, where it was an AR working model that you, for anyone who doesn't know, AR's augmented reality that you're going to see a lot more of, which we're going to talk about. But it was for engineering, where training could be done.
Yeah.
You know, with a working model and things like that, where an engineering company, like, correct me if I'm wrong, could put their staff into it and they could train on how to change parts or check something up and things like that without actually having been on site. And when you start to think about the applications of something like that, is that you can have 1,000 people, if you've got the bandwidth, obviously, to be training all at once. You know, it's a scalable thing that's, like, amazing after, like, that bit of language, if you will.
Well, and that's the thing, is that industry is going to develop, and we're already seeing it. You know, climate change is a huge subject at the moment. There's going to be a requirement to reduce our carbon footprints, and so we're going to need technologies to support cross collaboration, but not in something that requires travel.
Yeah.
And so the space that we find ourselves in very much at the moment is the immersive space, doing AR applications. So in that, the project you saw there was a company, Tracerco, based over in Billingham. They've got an amazing technologies. They trace liquids that go through pipes and distillation columns.
Oh my God.
Problem is with those things is they're just boxes. They're metal boxes. You can't see inside them. So how do you know what's happening inside them? Well, their sensors do all of that. But for years, their sensors have been based on graph paper and information that way that they have to visualize. Yeah. And so AR is all of a sudden it's perfect. We can just go, right, well, there's the sensor on the side of the unit. Yeah. What data is it outputting? Yeah. Everybody all of a sudden easily understands the process that they're going through and can make actionable processes that right there and then as well. So we're trying to kind of, I suppose, not change the world entirely. We're just trying to help people understand the application of immersive technology, and that it's not a gimmick, that it can actually change the way in which we work for the better.
Oh yeah, it's something that obviously we like think of everything from like a marketing perspective and stuff like that. I would think like technology, and AR is just going to be, and like obviously VR and stuff leading on from that is just for companies to be able to showcase what they do and how they do it, even in from everything from engineering to retail to, you know, any kind of space or what they sell, like even stuff like software demo or whatever it may be. Like, it's insane the applications of it moving forward, and I think it's going to be such a rapid growth in it. Like it's a great time, I suppose, for you guys to be involved.
Well, we hope so.
Yeah,
we definitely hope so from our point of view. I mean, I think what we've always seen is we've seen this coming for a while. The problem has always been actually more related to the physical hardware. Yeah. You know, the power that is required to run it. And what we're seeing now is, you know, there's been a major difference in, you know, smartphones have changed the way we do it. Again, not to be too technical, but the level in which you can produce microprocessors means that you can do it at such a small scale that you can do a huge amount of processing with so much less power requirement. Yeah. So all of a sudden, this world has become open to us. Yeah. Still some steps to go. You know, and I suppose what we actually spend most of our time at the moment is actually bringing back people from seeing various adverts online. I won't name the specific companies, but showing adverts online of what can be done with AR, and then us coming back and going, yeah, well, that can be done, but
you need $10 million to be able to put it together.
Either that, or a couple of years away from being able to do it in that space. So, you know, some process we've got to be able to go through, but actually now is the time to get your head around it. Yep. To really understand the application of it, because it's going to improve so massively. You know, and there's 5G technology and AI. If you can imagine, in not too distant time, if you could have your mobile phone capturing images of everything that you see around it, and AI processing those images, it will actually be able to tell you what you're looking at and how you're doing it. At the moment, it's a bit dumb, but it's
getting there. Like I can't remember what it was, but I read an article on it where basically what they were trying to do is, like, through phone, is recording everything that you see or giving you access to that at any point through the cloud. Right. And some people saying, "Oh, I wouldn't want that." And I was like, "You're joking, aren't you?" Like, I would kill for that. Like, you know, like, imagine being able to access your memories perfectly for everything you see. Like, seeing your child's first steps or spending time with loved ones that you've gone and stuff like that, and replaying those in an AR and VR environment. Yeah. That's incredible. Like, if it came out tomorrow, like, you would take my money straight away, you know. Like, it's I think we're at just a point now where people don't get their head around that it's going, like, to a digital virtual world. As much as people kind of sometimes want to push back against it. Yeah. Like, we always say, like the market decides. It doesn't matter what you think as a business. The market decides of what's happening, And the market, unfortunately, is pushing that way very, very quickly.
Well, what we will say to people when it comes to using the technology is that every technology has its place, and I'm not, bizarrely enough, I'm not a massive advocate for technology everywhere.
Yep.
But I am an advocate of using it in its right places. And VR, we say, do in VR the things that you can't do in the real world.
Yep.
With AR, do the things that you can't see in the real world. And that's a really good principle to get it over to anybody who feels a bit scared about it, of going, well, no, actually, park the technology. What's the challenge?
Yeah.
The technology should provide the solution to the challenge, but the technology in itself is not the end solution. It's you've got to understand what the challenge is really properly to be able to properly apply the technology as well. So
I can see kind of how, as just what you said there, how AR can help remove like pain points off like friction, of like you say for companies and stuff like that, where either people have got to come from long distance, like if they deal with people, they've got to come from the US to here to see products, or factories and things like that, or manufacturing or whatever it may be. This is gone, like like those, and the time and cost savings and stuff like that. As I'm just starting to think about it as I go on, and it just my mind just starts going like that.
Sensitive subject, but if you imagine it almost from a trade point of view, you're coming to a border, you need to inspect what's in there. Augmented reality solves a huge problem there. Safety
and things like that. You know what I mean? Like
literally, it's just across the line. You can really understand how it would work. I mean, there's some kind of slightly scarier technologies coming out. Holographic crystals that can project perfectly onto your eyeball anywhere you are in any one space. So you could augment anything over any environment. Those kind of things are not far away.
Will that be the next step with VR and things like that?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure whether how my morals sit with it, but really the problem when it comes to using immersive technology is, unfortunately, is this the body.
Yeah.
If you get past all of that and just get to the mind, then you can do anything.
Yeah.
And really, that's how technology should be going, because if you're trying to reduce carbon footprints and stop producing as much plastic, then the problem that we are doing at the moment in immersive technology is tricking the mind into believing what it is by using peripherals. When you can actually almost communicate directly with the mind to say that this is the interpretation of it, all of a sudden you're into the next stratosphere of immersive technology. But
so it goes back to the interface problem,
absolutely, key problem.
So how far are we with the burning question in my mind? I always say the one thing I want to see in tech before I die is I want to be able to be Spider-Man somewhere in reality.
Right.
Like in some kind of VR, so it looks amazing and I can do it and I can experience it. Whether it's because I'm a massive geek, but whether it's like in Star Wars or whatever, you know what I mean? There's like,
actual reality.
How far away do you think we are as a rough guess? Just to give me hope. Am I going to see it in my lifetime?
Yeah.
That makes me so happy.
Yes. I mean, some of the places where we are with technology at the moment, 5G and AI is the key to unlocking all of this. As soon as you remove transfer speeds, has been the point. As soon as you remove computational power, has been the ceiling on what you can do now. All of a sudden, the world is your oyster. You can actually do anything, and we're actually there now. Yeah. It's now just a matter of getting the infrastructure updated and deploying it and understand how it best to be used. But it's really not that far away. I mean, if you have a go on the new Oculus Quest.
Yeah, I've seen. I've never had a go on it, like actually admitting, but I've seen kind of things. I can't remember what it's called, but something very similar to like Star Wars with lightsabers. I can't remember what it's
Beat
called.
Saber.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. And that looks amazing. Like
awesome. So, but in the new VR headsets, what you do is you're not connected to anything. Yeah. And you put the headset on, and you mark out on the floor, almost with spray paint, the zone you want to be virtual. Yeah. You step into that, the virtual world comes. Then you step out of it, you can see the real world, then figure out with the cameras and what you're doing.
God, that's amazing.
Take that the next step, map out your entire house. You can have your friends over to watch a film with you any night. Yeah.
See, that's where I think things like where the two are going to meet between like film and VR and stuff like that. It won't be the point of like we do. Like obviously, it's the technology is a potato compared to that kind of stuff. But obviously, like 360 environments and videos and stuff like that. Yeah. That go in to like the nth degree where you will watch. You won't be sat in a seat watching something. You will be there. Like
you'll be
stood with them. It'll be that where game and all these kind of things become.
Well, real-time technology is not that far away from being photorealistic.
Yeah.
So if you can basically make a film as a game, but you are able to be an actor in there and you decide the plot of where it goes, then actually you can be a full part of the film and decide whatever you want to do. So it'd be
Well, I suppose like Skyrim and things like that are very like that kind of thing. But,
first step into it.
But it's that, you know, expanded into like just like an insane part. And I know there's a lot of people who might not want to do it and stuff like that, and that, you know, that they think we should be going away from it. But for me, it's just the applications of it that.
Well, the way I would say it is, you can think about it in any way, but to a disabled person that can't leave the home, you can all of a sudden, you can now take them on a tour of Machu Picchu.
Yeah.
Are we really going to start denying people that don't have the functional bodies in the way that the rest of us do?
Or even where
experiences,
like locked in, I can't remember what it's called, where they're there, but they're actually like locked in the mind and they can't communicate and stuff like that. Like that. Like if you had the interface problem solved there, then all of a sudden that person becomes like an avatar and a real person.
Absolutely.
In that kind of, and they can communicate and they can have jobs and relationships, and you know,
it becomes more human than what the real world actually is.
Exactly.
And I think that for me is, you know, the real value in what it brings to the world is, you know, I think people look at it in a very kind of post-apocalyptic way to do, and I understand how they would do it, but the innate human ability is to do the right thing. Yeah,
like I think that unfortunately, the world, the way it works with social media and the news and stuff like that, is bad news circulates more than good news.
Bad news gets clicks.
Exactly. I always laughed at when I used to work at the Gazette a million years ago. It's how I got started in advertising. And I asked the editor why it was always doom and gloom, like on the paper, and basically he said the three things that sell papers in Teesside are bad news, Palmos, and the Borough. And he said, so if nothing happens with the Palmo and nothing's happening with the Borough, then we're going to put bad news on the front page. And it does, it gets clicks and it sells. And
there's an old philosophy that the mind and even the body can process negative information quicker because it doesn't have to understand it. Negative information is generally absolute. Whereas positive information requires interpretation. Hence, it requires more energy. So therefore, we've moved into the default position of the path of least resistance, which isn't actually the best way for us to be going at this moment in time. So you know, some of the stuff that you see in VR, I don't know whether you've ever had to go on Crow.
I haven't.
The Legend Crow, and it was funded by the Oprah Winfrey Foundation, and it's an old Navajo story of how the crow brought light to the earth and how he became black. Beautiful. I would give it to any kid to be able to look at. It's one of the most beautiful, moving stories that you can put somebody in an experience of. That's where it really makes a difference. You know, when you actually touch somebody on the heart and actually go, this is an experience we've shared together, that's where I think it really is making something special.
And as I'm just starting to think of experiences and stuff like that, like all over, if like we could click a button, it would come out now. I think that the majority of 99%, well, maybe not 99%, 90% of it would be used for good. But obviously it's that 10% that people would worry about, and oh my God, it's going to turn into Skynet, and you know.
Well, I think if we don't embrace it, that 10% are going to be the people that own it. And that's the real worry for me, is that you know, while everybody turns away from it, then you just leave the bad guys to have a look at it and just go, actually, how can I manipulate this? Whereas it's up to us to now be in that position of going, actually, this could be a really force for good. So how can we use this as a force for good? You know, we use it in a training context to bring people into a world that they never had access to before. You know, starting to increase the opportunities of where people feel they can have a career. And actually, what is it like to be functional in that space? Whereas before, it's always been, oh, well, no, you can't access it. You're too far away from it. Like, no, put the headset on. Have a go. If you enjoy it. You know, to go speak to you about the careers advice.
God, it's incredible just when I started. I could talk about it all day. So, obviously, talking about careers and things like that's a nice segue into careers and tech as a whole. I use the word tech as, you know, that's bandied around by the media and stuff. I know we've talked about another podcast and things like that, and it's kind of like a bit of a whitewash that people kind of give to a lot of industries in Teesside, where it's really like you guys and, you know, game developers and proper software developers, not website designers, but developers and things like that. So how do you think the space is going currently within the local area?
I think, I mean, you see the way I would think about it. I would kind of think of you, I kind of take it a slightly different approach. I think of us as digital, but I think as creative digital or technical digital. And I think that is a really good way to start to define it, because creativity is really the fundamental part behind what we're all talking about here, is we're creating something new. And for some reason, creativity in the creative industries became a slightly dirty word, and the tech industry was the one that to take over it.
Yeah.
I think they're one and the same. And so I see it growing, but I think we've now got to be able to start to fuse it with the industries around us. So it's not just it's not just computer games and VR. It's not just mobile phones. It's not just content for necessarily social media. It's actually going to the companies and going, actually, no, you can use these companies to solve your challenges.
Yeah.
You know, they, like we're saying about Tracerco. How do you visualize what your products do?
Yeah.
That's how immersive technology can work. So when you start to enable other people to use it and stop it from being this very special niche thing that only us techies get access to, is going, well, no, there'll always be a place for techies, as there will always been. You know, you can look in almost any industry. Accountancy has got its own. Solicitors, they've all got the thing. And what I see is digital penetrates every single part of our lives now.
Yeah.
And the way that you work is in the creative side of digital. You are creating new content, you're empowering messages. Whereas the guys that are producing games are doing not too dissimilar thing, but what they're doing is they're doing one fixed big project, whereas you are doing lots of smaller projects. But inevitably, you're trying to get the same benefit, really. So I think it's more on us now to actually explain how the opportunities for growth are within the industry, where we can now do more than what has been what has come before us. You know, so from a marketing agency's point of view, you would generally work in the local region, the local companies, because that's who you can deliver to. Whereas now, you can work with local companies, but you can influence their supply chain as well. And that's where I start to see that. For me, I don't have a chip on my shoulder about any of the tech stuff. I'm kind of the more the merrier. You know, the more the merrier, because I think what your experiences are of using tech will be different to ours, but they're just as valid. You know, and it's starting to bring this message together of going, look, it's not this kind of black monolithic box that only us techies can understand. It's up to us to kind of go, right, well, we understand the tech. You don't need to understand the tech. You need to understand what the problem is. In your industry, you need to understand what your problems are. Technologies, we can handle that bit, but the technology is not the solution. The solution is whatever the challenge is in place.
It's kind of like what you're essentially doing is problem solving for customers. Tell me your problem, and then we provide a solution for it. It doesn't matter all about the gubbins and everything that happens in the background. Focus on the solution that we're giving you to your problem.
Exactly. And marketing, games, in data visualization, we're all doing a similar thing. Is we're solving problems with technology. It might be a communication problem, it might be an entertainment problem, but it might be a compliancy problem. But what we're doing is we're using digital technologies to create solutions around problems. And that, for me, is, I think, the next step we need to do is start to break down these barriers and start to make it feel a bit more inclusive to everybody in there, that everybody's involved in the industry. Everybody's got something to add to the industry. And I think it's really incumbent on combined authority and the local councils to support and create an environment for that success. I felt passionately about the Boho area and the digital cluster that we have in the Tees Valley, but I also know that from us guys on the ground, that we're the ones that have been running the hamster wheel for a very long time. And I worry that everybody puts so much effort into that, we get to that point of going, well, actually, I can have more success in Manchester, I can have more success in Newcastle, because it's much easier to get going in those places. And from our point of view as digital companies, we can easily we don't have to be located in anywhere, any space. I think really now we've got to create the infrastructure for success in the environment that we've created. We've done the first step, is we've created a cluster. It's operating, we've got some good players in that market. What we need to do is now mature that cluster and take it on to the next step. We can't, as I said to you earlier on, the kind of the elder statesman of that sector is, we would love to move out of Boho. We would love to move into a new space and make the space available that we currently occupy to the next Animmersion. But at the moment, our choices, if we were to do that, wouldn't be based necessarily in the Tees Valley, because there isn't the infrastructure there. So I think now it's really important that the councils and the combined authority and the colleges and the university work together to create this environment for this success.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about telling people what to do. It's about setting a level of ambition.
Yeah.
You know, and I think 10 years ago we created the Boho building, and to be honest, it was half empty for a bit of time.
Yeah.
But what it did is the companies that were starting up, when it was half empty, went, there's a place for me to live. There's a place for me to believe.
Yeah.
And I think we've got to get back onto that message, is that the environment is here for your success.
Yeah.
And that's the key message now.
I kind of, I used to use the term for a while of like, for so many companies like yourself and things like that, I imagine it was a case of, for quite a while, of, it's coming, you've got to hold your breath, basically. And now it's getting to the point where you can actually start to breathe out and in a little bit. And it's like going, like it was getting to that tipping point, and you can kind of see it going over that point. It's right on the precipice kind of thing of going over.
It is. And that is you're exactly right, is that now is the time. We're 5G, I can't say it enough. 5G and cloud computing is the dawn of non-location based tech companies. You can literally do anything anywhere in the world, and the great advantage of the Tees Valley is we're so plugged into industry, we're so plugged into manufacturing, that actually we've got something that quite a lot of areas don't have.
They have one or the other.
Exactly. And we should really take that on board, because we've got a lovely space, we've got a lovely environment to operate within, and the support and the will to make it happen. It's now just about trying to create that environment for that success as well.
Absolutely.
So
one of the things that we ask everybody when they come on the podcast is we ask everybody the same 3 questions.
Okay.
So I don't tell anybody ahead of time, because then I get robotic prepared answers, and I like to ambush people. So I'll tell you the 3 questions in order, and then we'll do each one. Don't worry, none of them are bad.
Do my best.
So the first one that we ask everybody is, what does success look like to you personally? Because we've had so many different answers. It's great for people, especially we're getting started up in business, to realise that there isn't just one thing that makes you a success. We've had people who've literally said, when I'm a millionaire, when I've got so much in the bank. Some people say, when I can spend less time at work, more time with family. When we've a company have grown to X amount of, of whatever. We've had so many different ones. So it's good for people to know that. The second one is, have you ever had a setback, a failure, or it was perceived as a failure at the time, that's later put you on the path to success? A lot of people use examples of, I got made redundant from, X job that actually made me start my own business that's now led on to this. We had the guys in from Sock Monkey the other day who they were saying basically they had a contract fell through like midway through their career that made them basically change on how they did business, that actually led forward to a really good bit. So it's good just to know that for a lot of people, that if you're getting in business, you are going to have these things. It's not if, you will have.
Absolutely.
You will have many, many sleepless nights with heads in hands and all that kind of thing. But it's good for people to see it. And then the third one, just a bit of fun, is, have you got anything that you are really into or obsessed by at the moment? So we've had TV shows, gadgets. Ben Houchin said he was obsessed with home automation and Alexa and stuff like that. He was currently going through setting up everything. So
doing a similar thing myself.
we were just talking about it there. I don't know if you know, but it was announced the other day that Samuel Jackson's going to be doing a voice for Alexa, which I thought was the greatest news anyone's ever given me.
I saw some of the memes. I won't repeat the memes online. But
There's some great ones as well.
Pulp Fiction reorientation.
Which I thought was great. I thought about my daughter starting to use Alexa, and she's 3, so I don't really want Samuel L. Jackson to. So so there's loads of great things there. So we'll start with the first one. Is, what does success look like to you?
That is a really good question, and I'm going to have to think about that one. But I suppose what I would say is, personally, from Animmersion's point of view, is a bit of a cheeky one. Is for people to, when they come to us and say, "Oh, I see your Animmersion," and for them to be able to describe what we do, rather than we have to then describe back to them what we do. If we can solve that one problem that we've had our entire lives, we've tried to make our own industry. And what I feel was success for us is when people understand the industry that we've created and the benefits it has, so people can rather than having to re-engage and re-educate people, people can see the value in it themselves.
Yeah.
You know, when people take true ownership of, you know, you've heard me say,
Yeah.
the part, the tech to one side, and they own the idea. That's where I feel like the success. You know, we've really achieved what we were trying to do in the first place.
Awesome. So the second question is: have you ever had, you know, a setback, or I hate to use the word failure because it sounds so like horrible, but what at the time you might perceive it as a failure,
Yeah,
but actually,
I don't, you know, it's the classic is you only learn from failures.
Yeah.
You know, and you can call a failure in any different way. Lots.
Yeah.
Lots. And it's something, to be honest with you, as a programmer and a developer previously, something I actually generally embraced massively, because it's when you program something or you create something, you do an animation, and everybody likes it.
Yeah.
You don't know what you've done right, because everybody just turns out it's great.
Yeah.
Whereas when you do something wrong, you'll find out pretty quickly where you made something wrong. So, you know, I think that is the important thing about whatever you call it, failure, learning, whatever it is.
I need to come up with a better term for the question, because you feel horrible saying the word failure.
Yeah, no, but we don't see it as a, you know, we embrace failure.
Yeah.
You know, it means you've just learned, you've experienced something. So, yeah, failures from my point of view, I can tell you that the absolute first one is when we set up the business. We were an animation business and doing immersive technologies, and we kind of stepped in and went, we don't need to run our business like anybody else runs their business. We're immersive, we're different, we're cool. We don't need to worry about balance sheets, we don't need to worry about P&Ls.
Yeah.
Oh, how very, 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 very wrong I was.
I think everybody went, especially like when the first set up a business, especially if they're young or coming into those kind of industry, I think we all feel that same way. I know I definitely did.
Yeah.
And when you look at like, when you start to look at like costings of time and things like that, and all, you know, project profitability and, you know, like all those things that you don't think about those things at the beginning. We just want to make cool stuff. It'll be fine.
Honeymoon, isn't it?
Yeah. And then when you actually like start to look at things, you're like, oh, like even just stuff of, there's a problem where for whatever reason, like programmers can't work on something, and the guys are sitting around doing nothing. You're like, hang on, this is actually costing money for them just to be sat there and stuff like that. Like,
exactly,
you don't think about those kind of things.
No, and you know, that kind of led on to the next one, which was the expectation that people would just understand what we do and would just want to do it.
Yeah.
And which goes back to my original point, is that if people can understand what we do without me having to tell them, then I've finally succeeded, because that is probably the biggest failure of us in that space. Is we're in the cutting edge all the time, and so for us it's completely normal. And the things that we kind of see as cutting edge, I think people would just be terrified about. But it took a long time to get our heads around that. Actually, you know, we needed to slow it down a bit. That maybe things that we thought were going to be a success or a failure hadn't even come into the zeitgeist yet, as far as people understanding it. You know, so
you're kind of living in the future, aren't you? And you're worried about things that the general public have no kind of perception of.
Completely, yeah. So, you know, I would say, you know, just in that startup phase was going, we're completely different, and that feeling that you know, people just get what we do and the technology would work was really kind of, that was a bit wet behind the ears. Actually, is what I learned through all of that is business regardless. Yeah. And the quicker you get yourself matched up to being a functional business with proper governance, the easier your client's going to find to work with you. Yeah. Because it's not necessarily about how comfy it is for you to work with them. Is your client's coming in and going, well, actually, you know, our business works in this way. We have a balance sheet. We have a profit and loss. If you're not even willing to appreciate the value in the things that we're doing, then why the hell should we work with you? Yeah. It's how they plug into you, not how you plug into them. Exactly. Yeah. And that was probably our biggest failing in startup, is, you know, just that, I don't really be right. You know, I would say, you know, looking back at it, and it happens in various different ways, and it still continues to happen. You know, with virtual reality, we had the feeling that, because we've been in that space since we started up, but Oculus and such only came along in the last 4 or 5 years. We thought everybody would just get it. Yeah. And, you know, most of our time now is actually explaining to people of what you can do, mostly what you can't do as well, because there's an inflated expectation of what people think that they're going to be able to achieve in it versus the actual reality of the virtual reality. Absolutely. If that's a way to say it. Yeah, absolutely. So the third and final one was, have you got anything that you were like obsessed about or really into, either as a business or in your personal life? Or so Yeah, I have a few obsessions. If my wife was here, she'd probably be able to reel them all off in there. But for me, is trying to empower people to use technology in a way that doesn't scare them.
Yeah.
So, example, I've tried to put Alexa into my mum's house, and I explained to my mum that she was going to need an Amazon Prime account, she's going to need a Spotify account, and everything else, and she just sat there and just went, it's too scary.
Yeah.
It's far too scary. And I realised that just by, again, I'm all the way over here, she's here, was going, okay, well, this world's never going to change, is that if we can't come back to where everybody is and their common understanding of it. Yeah. So, like I said about Ben, I'm obsessed in smart home tech at this moment in time, absolutely obsessed in smart home tech.
I'm very similar. Have you seen Mark Zuckerberg made his home fully automated? He does like a project every year,
right?
And he basically did it and wrote and he got Morgan Freeman to voice it and stuff like that. Like, that's amazing. Like, that's what I want Jarvis basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And I spend a lot of time. I have and I've worked with people that have put like £25,000, £50,000 smart home systems into the house. Yeah. And I've been showing to my friends and my family is you can do it for £500. Yeah. Don't believe the hype. Yeah. It's so much easier, and trying to bring it into people are just going, you shouldn't be led by a brand or by what people are telling you. Yeah. It's accessible to us all, and kind of just turn off the manuals, turn off all of that. Yeah. Plug it together. Does it do the thing you expect it to do? Yeah. No. Well, why is it not doing the thing you expect it to do? Well, it's because it's not the right thing for you to use. Yeah. Simplify it from that point of view. So I'm really my biggest passion is to make sure that people have a positive experience in virtual reality. Let's be broadcast, but I don't mind saying it. I personally think that mobile VR is one of the worst things in the world. Yeah. Because it delivers a terrible experience, and people that are producing it don't care about how you physically feel when you use it.
Oh no, they want the product and you buy, and then that's it.
That's it. Cut and shut. Yeah. Whereas it's incumbent on us as developers to make sure that if we're delivering a virtual reality experience, you shouldn't feel sick. Yeah. If you felt sick, then we failed.
Because you don't feel sick in normal life.
Yeah. Whereas people taking it off and going, oh, it's not for me. Yeah. I can't interact with this because I'm obviously different from the rest. It's like, no. Yeah. What you've just experienced is bad programming. Yeah. Yeah. It's not good content. Yeah. And so I'm trying to ensure that people don't turn away from this technology before it's actually arrived. Yeah. That they do see the value in it, and that they don't feel stupid. They don't feel like a failure. In here because they can't use it. Is that if they feel like a failure because they can't use it, it's because the technology has failed. Yeah. Not them.
Yeah. It's kind of like I say a lot of things all the time actually when I start thinking about. But content is the variable, like in our industry and things like that.
Content is king.
Like if somebody doesn't understand your message, or you've been a business that can't communicate, or something that your content like was not fit for purpose, or and it's the exact same way. It's not you that's got the problem, it's the content that needs to improve.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. So I completely agree with you.
In the world that we are, we use mobile phones, we use tablets, we use holograms, we use VR headsets, we use augmented reality and projection-based systems. They're all just pixel pushers. Yep. That's all they're doing is pushing pixels. Yeah. So it's the things that change the colours of the pixels, that's the important stuff. It's not the technology itself. Yeah. And trying to ensure that people feel the value in that of doing it, and making sure that that they explore this technology but don't start to put themselves in kind of this kind of gated community that they're trapped to get out of. We are the individuals. We choose where we want to use technology. Yeah. We don't let technology dictate to us how we should use it.
Exactly, yeah. Which is one of the things, like, obviously, I've got 2 young children, and all I think about is, social media and how they're going to deal with it, and how, there's no way that you could, I've talked to so many parents, oh, they're not going to have it. And I was like, well, that's, somebody, my daughter can use, 1 year old was using an iPad and stuff like that, because the content was so good and so intuitive. Exactly. I was like, oh, you shouldn't let her. And I was like, no, that's the way the world's going. It's about educating her about how these things work and choosing where the technology is in her life. It's not about limiting. It's about correct exposure.
Correct exposure. Absolutely. I've got a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old actually at home, and you can imagine they're surrounded by tech all the time. I don't force it on them.
No.
I let them have a go on it. I'd limit the times in which they're going to be able to do it. But I would say to anybody who go, don't let me use the tablet or don't let them have a go on the game. It's like, that's the future.
Yeah.
If we're not going back to the 60s where you can only had to use a calculator.
Yeah,
I mean, think back to the days you weren't allowed to take a calculator into an exam. It's like,
Yeah.
What, a calculator is going to just disappear in the future? It's like, no, why don't we teach people how to use calculators rather than make them stupid? So, I couldn't agree more. It's about sensible exposure to technology and understanding the value in it rather than going, I'm scared of it. And I think, I personally, I feel very strongly about this, is there's a constant conversation about how do we get women into tech.
Yeah.
And it starts at home. It's got to be that it can't just be over to the dad to be the techie.
Yeah.
They've both got to do it. And if they can hear words from either of parents going, oh, no, I'm not doing that, it scares me, oh, no, what they're doing is they're reinforcing the barriers to the children.
Yeah.
Got to break those barriers down. Just go, I as an adult might not understand it, but you might get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hand it over, share.
Yeah.
The context of it is the future, and that's the way it's always going to be.
And I think it's always been there that people don't realise. Like, I had a conversation about it the other day, and I was like, when you were younger, did your dad ever take you to a car park and sit on his knee and let you steer the car?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, all he was doing there was sharing technology with you.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Absolutely.
The only difference is your perception of it. But back then, that was the technology.
Yeah.
Like, did you get taught how to use a remote control when you watched the telly? Yeah. Well, there was a time that was new tech and stuff like that. You know
Actually,
what I mean?
I ended up teaching my parents how to use all of that.
Yeah. It went the other way.
But no, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Thank you so much for coming on. Like, I feel it's one of those things that there was so many things that I feel as though I could talk to you about for like a long period of time.
I could talk forever and a day.
I'm the same. It's we try and cap the podcast at like a rough time, just purely because of just user interaction and things like that.
Of course.
But there's so many where I talk to people and think, God, this could be a 3-hour podcast like so easily and like blink. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm really welcome. Really delighted to be here and talk about it.
Anybody wants to get any information about Animmersion, etc., all their details will be linked below in the description. So please, if you've got any of the problems that we've talked about and you need like original, like fantastic solutions, I highly recommend it. I've seen some of the work in it; it's phenomenal.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks very much for coming on.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah, much appreciated.
The Teesside Business Podcast is promoted and produced by Person to Person Marketing. Thanks very much for listening.